Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy
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 Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
Where are you now?
Happy
In
Hanukkah.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, a lot of people down there read the Bible.
All right.
Bible country.
How is everybody?
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, so I've been on the road since a week ago, Monday.
Oh.
Yeah, something like that. And from here, we go on to Memphis, Tennessee. And then a stop at home. Yeah. And it just goes on. Thank God the book is selling well. Getting good response. So Hanukkah, as we've spoken before, is unique among the holidays that that celebrate our miracles, the miracles of our survival. Because there's Pesach, Passover, celebrates our successful escape from slavery. Purim, there was a genocidal plan afoot, and we were saved from that. And Hanukkah, we were overrun by the Assyrians, by the Greeks, the Hellenists. The difference is that Pesach happened in Egypt. We weren't yet in the Holy Land, in the Promised Land. Purim happened after we were exiled from the Holy Land in Persia and 127 different countries under Persian rule at the time. But Hanukkah happened while we were in Israel, in Jerusalem, in the temple. What makes that particularly scary is because if you are at home in your securest place, in your own home, in your holiest place, and that is attacked and compromised, what is it you can look forward to? If you're in Egypt, you look forward to getting out of Egypt. If you're in Persia, you look forward to going back to Israel and building the second temple. But if you're in the temple and you're being attacked, it's like all hope is gone. But really, it's like losing your innocence, because you're at your holiest, you're minding your own business, you're doing very well, and all of a sudden, all that goodness is shattered with an unholy invasion. So literally, it's like losing your innocence. And that's the description, that's the picture you get. The Hellenists, the Assyrians, they violated the temple. And they corrupted or spoiled or made the oil unholy, so that there wasn't enough pure oil, uncontaminated oil, with which to light the menorah. So really, it is the drama of losing your innocence and regaining it. So the little cruise of oil that they found that had not been contaminated, that is the deeper, truer, essential oil, which is your true innocence that cannot be compromised and can't be ruined and can't be spoiled. So the message of Hanukkah is, not only are we going to survive not only are we going to remain free to be ourselves, we're going to be our purest self, and nothing will ever compromise that. So I think we've spoken about this also many times, that our generation, we are not the most scholarly of generations by far. We're not the most pious. We're not the most spiritual. I mean, we didn't stand at Mount Sinai. We didn't hear God speak. We didn't see the splitting of the sea. We didn't see the 10 plagues in Egypt. We didn't have all those spiritual experiences. So we're not the most spiritual generation. We're not the most scholarly generation. We're not the most pious generation. We're not the most anything. And we're the first ones to admit it. But we do have one redeeming quality. We have no ulterior motives. It's a little ironic there. Because we are not the most scholarly, because we are not the most pious, because we're not the most spiritual, we have no ulterior motives. I don't want to be pious, I don't want to be spiritual, and I don't want to be scholarly. And it's not going to happen even if I did want. I don't get honored for doing mitzvahs. I'm not really particularly interested in avoiding the pains of afterlife. What ulterior motive do we have today to do any mitzvah at all? We don't. See, that's like stripping things down to their absolute essence. Take away all the trappings, take away all the benefits, all the ulterior motives. Take it all away, and what's going to be left? You would think there'd be nothing left. Because if there's nothing in it for me, if you're not offering me anything, why in the world would I do it? But what we discovered was that the oil of our neshama is essential. It doesn't need to be bribed. It doesn't need to be rewarded. It doesn't need an ulterior motive. It's essential. Essential means it is what it is because that's what it is. Like an essential oil. The essence of peppermint. Well, what makes it peppermint? Because it's peppermint. So what makes us serve God? Because we're created to serve God. That's how we're designed. That's how we were created. That's the purpose for which we exist. That's who we are. And that's what we are. Yeah, there's the peppermint. So we have this incredible virtue that other generations didn't have. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't people in the past who functioned without ulterior motives. Of course there were, but they were the exception in those generations because there were so many ulterior motives. They were hard to avoid. I heard recently a story about a guy back in Russia who kept his shop open on Shabbos. And it was the scandal and the talk of town. And people stopped shopping there even during the week. So he went back to keeping Shabbos. And to not keep Shabbos in a Jewish shtetl was suicidal. So why did everybody keep Shabbos? What were they going to do? So there were very real ulterior motives. I'm not saying unholy motives. I'm not saying that that they were doing it for the money or for the honor, but there were plenty of motives that are decent, but not the essence. Even those motives are gone. In the olden days, if you were going to stop observing, you're going to lose your family, your support system, your comfort zone. Life was nice. You had a family, you had a village, you had a tradition, you had a lifestyle. Life was good. Why in the world would you give that up? Even if you stopped believing in God, but you got a nice setup, why would you give it up? For what? We don't have that, most of us. So today it's the reverse. Of course, there are still people today who serve God with ulterior motives, but now they are the exception. They're the minority now. Now, most of us serve God without any thought of a reward because there is no reward. Human, physical. And what reward do we get that is heavenly or, well, I don't know. So it's not much of a motivation. So we are today serving God like the greatest of the saints in the past. But in the past, the greatest saints were the minority. Today, we are the majority. That's the prophecy that just before the coming of Mashiach, we will all be Baalei Tshuva. We will all be serving God on the rebound. We will rediscover God. That's the tshuva, the tshuva response. We tried living without God. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't have any purpose. There's no meaning in it. So we rediscover God, and we rediscover Him, not the benefits that we can get from Him. So people are asking in the emails and other ways, and on the trip, you meet people, and they all have questions about the future, where are we going, what's going to happen. And we have to reiterate and tell everyone we know. The confusion is terrible, absolutely. Because when we're not rooted, when we have no anchor in truth, then yes, there's going to be a lot of confusion. And the confusion is going to get worse in the next couple of months. Life is not going to get worse. We got to remember this. Life is not bad right now. It's just so unsettling and so uncertain and so confusing that we don't enjoy the good life that we happen to have. So the confusion is going to get worse. But if it does, then you should be very happy. Because If I'm right about the confusion, then I'm probably also right about the results. After a few months of worse, intensified confusion, things are going to start to become fantastic. So we just need to buckle up for a few more months. Again, nothing terrible is going to happen. Just the craziness is going to be even more shocking because we're undoing every last hope, every last false belief, false God. We're giving up everything. The entire rug is being pulled out from under us so that we don't use that old rug anymore. And it's going to be replaced by a much better one. Story of Hanukkah. It's not just that we survived like in Purim, and it's not just that we got out of slavery like in Passover. It's our highest and finest instincts cannot be destroyed. We can function on our most selfless, our most innocent level of existence, and nothing can ever change that. It's been tried many times, and we keep bouncing back. So, if you can enjoy the confusion with a little sense of humor, it'll make it a little easier. But be absolutely confident that it's only a matter of months. In the story of Hanukkah, how did you hear the story? They found one cruse of oil that was only enough for one day. But miraculously, it burned for 8 days. Is that the story? Well, if it was enough for one day, then the miracle was only a 7-day miracle. So we really should be celebrating Hanukkah for 7 days, because one day was natural. It wasn't enough for even one day. So even the first day was already a miracle. Or, according to some opinion, at the end of the first day, they realized that the oil had not been consumed and there was still oil for tomorrow. So the first day was miraculous because it didn't consume the oil. So it may have burnt naturally, but it didn't consume the way it naturally would or should. At any rate, the first day was also a miracle. But I think the point of it is this. If you have the confidence, if you have the trust and the faith that what is pure, what is true, what is godly, without embellishment, without any artificial ingredients, just the simple truth itself, if you trust it, of course it can last for 8 days. In fact, it can last for as long as you need it to last, because you're talking about an indestructible, eternal truth. Why is it a miracle that it lasted 8 days? It can last 8,000 years, 8 million years. What's the difference? True is true forever. So if they discovered a really, truly original, uncompromised innocence, of course it can burn for 8 days. It's essential. It's indestructible. So it kind of reminds you of the burning bush. The bush burns but doesn't get consumed. That's what Moshe saw. And the people in Hanukkah saw oil burning but not getting consumed. Yes, because innocence can light your menorah, but it doesn't get consumed. You don't use up your innocence. You can use up your ulterior motives. You can run out of them, but you can't run short on innocence, because innocence is the essential original truth. So what does it mean that the miracle was 8 days? Yeah, because it took 8 days to prepare fresh oil and to deliver it from the oil fields to Jerusalem, from the olive groves. So 8 days later, they had plenty of oil. But the oil that was burning, they could have used that endlessly. The message there is, using miraculous oil is not the best way of performing a mitzvah. The mitzvah has to be performed in a way that it affects the world out there that is not essentially innocent. And that's why we light the menorah as it's getting dark, preferably. In other words, we're not sharing the innocence and the essence of the purity. We're not sharing it with more purity. We're sharing it with those things that are not pure, and inviting the impure world, the non-essential world, to give up its nonsense and to join us in what is real and true forever. To do that, you have to use oil that was not burning miraculously, but burning naturally. So as soon as they could go back to using naturally pressed oil, they did that. So this is an angle in the story of Hanukkah that we need to give a little more attention. The greatness is not the oil that burned for 8 days. It's that after the 8 days, they continue to light the menorah with natural oil. In other words, the 8-day miracle inspired them for the rest of the year. The inspiration didn't end at the 8th day. It was an 8-day inspiration for the rest of the year, or for the rest of our history, because we're still doing it. 2,000 years later, we're lighting the menorah. So obviously those 8 days were just the beginning of the miracle, not the end of it. Now, in the bicentennial year, 1976, we put up a huge sukkah in downtown Minneapolis on the Nicollet Mall, right in the heart of downtown, the business district. And we invited people to come in and have something to eat and make a blessing on the lulav and esrog. People who just popped their head in to see what was going on saw the sign that we put up on the sukkah. You know, everybody, it was the bicentennial. So every establishment, every school, every business, every building was showing off its age. You know, since 1901, since 1846. So we put up a sign saying, Happy Sukkot for the 3,320th, or whatever the year was that. And people were absolutely stunned. You've been doing this for 3,300 years? Yes. Yeah. We came out of Egypt 3,300 years ago, and we spent 40 years in a desert living in temporary huts. And then we did that every year on the holiday for 8 days. The holiday of Sukkot. So it's really not complicated. There's no embellishment there. When you do something for 3,300 years, you don't need to embellish anything. It speaks for itself. And then we stop and think, under which conditions, what lifestyle were people experiencing, living, when they put up their sukkah? Well, depends which period of history. For hundreds of years, we did it in Israel, under Joshua, under King David, under King Solomon. For hundreds of years, we did it in Spain, in Babylon, in Persia. For hundreds of years, like over 1,000 years, in Germany, in Europe, in Asia, all over Asia. Life was very different in these different places. Sometimes we were comfortable, accepted into society. Sometimes we were tortured and hounded and rejected by society. Sometimes we were among the rich. Sometimes we were among the poor. But one thing was consistent. For those 8 days out of the year, 3 days after Yom Kippur, we put up the sukkah. Now imagine what the sukkah looked like. In the beautiful, idyllic times in Israel, they were beautiful, natural, comfortable. In Spain, they must have been elaborate, highly decorated, made out of good material, beautifully constructed. And then there were times we had to make believe it wasn't the sukkah because it was too dangerous. It was put together of a few loose boards because we couldn't afford a real piece of lumber. The slightest wind would knock it down because it was flimsy, it was feeble. So it went through many, many different shades and colors, but it was always there. 3,300 years. It's impressive if you can do anything for 3,000 years, even if you're living in a very stable lifestyle. And it's just an old habit, an old established custom, and you just keep on doing it. That's impressive. But it is so much more impressive when you have a totally unpredictable history, a totally unpredictable life. You're from one country to another, from one standard to another, from one culture to another, and yet something remains consistent. That tells you that there's a lot of innocence, a lot of essential oil here that cannot be compromised or contaminated. That is the beauty of Hanukkah. And that's why it has to be public. It has to be visible to the outside. Because it's not just a victory for the Jewish people. It's a victory for truth over falsehood, for the real thing over fake things. It gives hope to the world. The world can and will be a very good place. It has to, because you can't mess with what is real. You can't reinvent what is real. You just got to embrace it, live with it, and be inspired by it, because it's not going away. Fred, how are you? We missed you. Does anybody have a good Hanukkah story? Some good news for Hanukkah?
I hear you're coming back today. I had the good news I wanted to share is that I heard that you'll be coming back again. Just
California?
effort. Yes, you don't know. I know it before you do.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
You're coming here for one of your grandchildren's events, and I'm gonna respectfully put you to work again. Hopefully, God willing. I have a Hanukkah question also. This has been a question in my husband's family for a long time, and no one's really been able to answer it in a way where I felt like this is the answer. My husband's father, God rest his soul, and every single one of his 4 other siblings all passed away on Hanukkah.
What?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I really feel that there must be some sort of significance to that. And I've been waiting to find that something that seems like this is it. And then, this has been a question in my mind for many years. And then today, my father's sister also passed on the 4th day of Hanukkah. So this now makes my question even greater. Like, what is the significance of that? What does it mean? It has to be, how they say that, if you pass on Shabbat, it has great significant meaning. And so I figure Hanukkah would have something behind it too. So what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. This is so amazing. But you're right, it's definitely a good sign. Wow.
Yeah.
But just a thought on related to the subject, not really an answer to your question. Mm-hmm. On the first night of Hanukkah, you light one candle. But that candle doesn't stand alone, because you have the candle with which you lit the candle. Because you always use a candle to light the other candles. That's called the service candle.
Mm-hmm.
The candle with which you light the other candles. So it's technically the 9th candle on the menorah. So it's separated from the rest. It's kind of off to a side, or it's higher or lower than the others, so that it doesn't confuse the count. The best, most kosher menorah is the one where all 8 candles are in a row. most common menorahs, you have 4 candles on the right side, 4 on the left, and in the middle, you have the tall service candle. But then it makes it a little harder to see what night, you walk past the menorah, and it's a little hard to tell which night it is because the candles are broken up and there's a candle in the middle. So with a glance, you may not be able to tell what night it is. So if you have all the 8 candles in a row and the service candle off to a side, it's a little better for the viewers so that you can see immediately what night it is, how many candles are burning. So the candle that is alone, or would be alone, on the first night of Hanukkah, has the blessing or the presence of the service candle, so that it is not alone. And the moral of the story from that is that you're never alone. There's always someone to help you. God is your service candle, the Jewish community, good people everywhere. There will always be someone to help you. You're never alone. The Chabad message is the opposite. It's not like you are the candle and someone will be of service to you. The Rebbe's message is, you be the service candle. Don't be the one served, be the one that does the serving. So although the 9th candle is considered like really not one of the major or primary candles, in some way it's even better. It lights all the other candles. So it's not a single candle, it's a candle that lights 8. And once you get to 8, you can keep on going forever. So our task for our generation is not to be the light in the candelabra itself, but to be the service light that turns on all the other 8. So the theme of Hanukkah is the theme of service, which is an interesting thing. We're celebrating a miracle that happened for us. And our conclusion is we should be the miracle, not just sit back and be grateful for the miracle that happened to us, but that because of the miracle, we are now committed to being the miracle for others. So somebody who passes away on Hanukkah probably was the Shamash candle. If you serve others, if you take responsibility for others, then when the time comes, you deserve to pass away on Hanukkah. So if that was true of your family, and it's still true, it would make a lot of sense. You see, passing away on Shabbos,
for years.
Passing away on Shabbos is something special, but you don't make Shabbos. Shabbos comes every week, whether you make it or not. So you're not being of service on Shabbos. Shabbos is the source of blessing for you. So you're the receiver, not the giver. But Hanukkah, the theme is to be the giver, to be the service candle. 8 candles need to be lit. Who's going to do it? Leave each candle to take care of itself? Every man for himself? Nope. There's a service candle. Anyone who needs to be lit, that candle is available and will be concerned and devoted to the needs of the other candles. I guess you could say like a mother candle. Do we
That's
have
one so far,
any
I
new
must
people
say.
tonight? Yeah, it fits. It's the nature of the family.
Mhm. Thank you for that.